Let's talk a little bit about filters. Now, if you've done a lot of coding, as we've done here, we're looking at all of the sources in this file. Even if we look at one source, you see there's quite a lot of material there. If we click through the sources, you'll see that you can perhaps make sense of each one of them, but there's a lot of work to be done to make sense of all of this information. So, and especially if you look at the whole file. Now, you might have been using a very strict code book so that you've only really got a few factors with lots of links between them, but in most cases, you're going to have had quite a number of different factors, and so there's a lot to take in there. You can't show that to anybody and expect them to understand it. So that's why we've got this sub-tab here called Filter Links. And here you can use lots of different filters to make sense of your maps. So the simplest thing to do is simply to use this filter called the factor label filter and look for particular things. For example, I can look for any label that has the term farm production anywhere in its label. So here it says anywhere. And indeed, over here we can see that there's quite a few causal links with farm production in them. In fact, here there's a couple more. There's labels which are actually farm production, and there's labels which have got farm production and something else in them. So they've all been highlighted here in pink, and they have a little star to make them easier to see. And you can see the story of all the links going into and going out of that label. Now, even on this quite simple filter, there's a lot more you can do. You can, for example, say, I don't want to know about what caused farm production. I only want to know about what it causes. But I want to know what it causes and also the consequences of those things that it causes. So you can see there's here we can trace a link to a child and then to a grandchild, so to speak. And you can also, it says farm production, you can say, no, I only want factors with just exactly that label. So here by doing that, we've removed any factors which don't have farm production at the start, or we can click exact to show only factors which have just exactly that label. So that's one filter. There's a lot you can do with it. You can disable the filter like that to show back, to get them back everything, or you can enable it again. You can toggle it, so you can, if you've got a lot of filters, you can just see the top, and if you want, you can remove it like this. But that's just one filter. Supposing you're looking at this and you're saying, well, that's quite cool, but there's a lot of different things going on here. I just want to look at the main stories. So we can add another filter. Press this button here, this one here to add one at the top, or this button here to add one at the end after this other filter. So I'm going to look at frequencies. I'm only going to look at, I only want to look at factors which have been mentioned by, let's say, a minimum of 2 sources, or a minimum of 4 sources, or a minimum of 9 sources. You see how the map changes as I change the filters. So the factor frequency filter has got 4 different possible settings. You can say, show me the all those factors that have at least 9 sources, or you can say, show me all those factors that have at least 9 citations. That's normally a bit more because it could be that sometimes you've got one source that talks about the same thing many times. So this will normally show you a bit less if you think in terms of sources rather than in terms of citations. Or you can think the other way around and say, show me only the top 9 factors here in terms of citations, or the top 9 factors in terms of sources, which in this case is pretty much the same thing. So there are just 2 filters, but you can have any number of filters and you can move them around. If you grab this one here, you can move that to the top in front of the other one. And in this case, that doesn't make much difference, but it can do. It can make a big difference, the order that you put your filters in. And if you click here, you can see that there's dozens of other filters, which do all kinds of different things. There's filters, for example, instead of thinking in terms of factor frequency, you can think in terms of link frequency. So show me only links which have a certain number of mentions. And when you've set your filters like this, when you refresh that page or you bookmark that page, we use these filters to come back to exactly the same view.